y'all. Welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley. Hey, this is our second episode of Offering Empathy, and today we're gonna talk about homeless folks. Okay. I'm gonna pull up some American or United States statistics. Homelessness in America, United States. Stats in America. Okay. January of last year, 2024, the U.S. saw a record high of 771,480 people experiencing homelessness on a single night, representing an 18% increase from 2023. This included 149,450 children and nearly 512,000 single adults. The homeless population is not evenly distributed, with significant concentrations in California, New York, and Florida. All right. Alright, let's talk about, according to Google, some of the trends and factors. Rising homelessness. Homelessness in the U.S. has been on a rising trend since 2017. What happened in 2016? Who was the president? Oh yeah. Okay, that makes sense. With a brief respite during the COVID pandemic because people had stimulus checks. Okay? Lack of affordable housing. Lack of affordable housing is a major driver of homelessness, with 70% of lowest wage households spending more than half of their income on rent. Okay? Other contributing factors: natural disasters, natural or man-made. Okay, it doesn't say that, but I'm saying that. Like the fires that are strategically popping up all over the place. Okay? Rising inflation and systemic racism, Google, are also contributing to the rise of homelessness. That's cool. All right, what we're going to talk about, what are 5 facts about homelessness? All right, so when I was in Los Angeles, I worked with the Los Angeles Community Action Network down in Skid Row. Skid Row is the homeless capital of the nation. At least it was while I was there. Again, this was pre-Trump and during the first admin. So toward the tail end of the Obama admin, I was there 2014, 2015, until 2020. And I worked in Skid Row alongside Los Angeles Community Action Network. And what they do, LA CAN is a longstanding nonprofit organization that has been serving as a check and balance to the city and county of Los Angeles to ensure affordable housing, or at least providing. So RAP is the organization, the Western Regional Advocacy Project, and they're in San Francisco. They're they work out of San Francisco, but it is a large coalition between Colorado, I think Washington, Oregon, Cali. I'd like to work with one here in Arizona, but I'm just not there yet. But so RAP, they create all these really dope posters and other swag and stuff. But RAP did, alongside LA CAN, a homeless bill of rights. And what that is it was a large project, probably like a decade before I got there, that they had been working on this to facilitate counties and cities to lessen criminalization of homelessness and acknowledge the other factors causing homelessness. Because in America, in the United States, the narrative around homelessness is that's your fault, right? Because of neoliberalism, because of, propaganda and programming, and everyone thinks that everyone on the street is a drug dealer or a prostitute, or, oh, you did that to yourself. A lot of people that are homeless are actually aged out of the foster care system. A lot, like let's look up the actual percentage, because there's a lot of young adults who have aged out and that their families just kick them out, right? What? Let me see. What? I know that's a big thing for Phoenix. I see this guy, what is he called? Tales from the Streets or something, on Instagram. But a lot of the kids or young adults, 11 to 36% of young people aging out of foster care experience homelessness. That's insane. 11 to 36%. Studies have shown that between 31% and 46% of foster youth may experience homelessness by age 26. Additionally, 20% of young adults in foster care become homeless when they turn 18. And so what happens then is that they're preyed on because they're young, they're naive, they're hopeless. Not like victimizing them. I'm just saying they are in, I mean, what would you feel? How would you feel if you were, first of all, in foster care, so you don't know how many, different homes these kids have been through, what the treatment was, because a lot of people who are foster parents are really shitty fucking people. Those dads really like to sexually assault those kids. So a lot of kids run away, right? A lot of kids do stuff. And because of that, then they are more vulnerable or susceptible to being preyed upon by other forces. And that's the thing about Skid Row. A lot of people in Skid Row are like, oh my God, it's so scary. I don't want to go down there. Those people are bad. I never knew community until I was in Skid Row. I never knew it because I grew up in white suburbia. So being in Skid Row is predominantly black folks. And the way they look out for each other was definitely very new to me. Yes, there are the problems. There are drugs, there are prostitution, but those things exist behind closed doors as well. Okay, let's keep it so fucking for real. Especially in Hollywood, all right? Your wealth doesn't really have an indication on the morality of who you are, right? Or your ethical standing. More often than not, it actually makes you a really shitty fucking person. So anyway, all that to say is we're going to offer empathy to homeless folks. Going back to the Homeless Bill of Rights. So in Los Angeles in particular, there's Municipal Code 4118D, which is you cannot sit or lay down on the sidewalk. And that has been something that the Homeless Bill of Rights, the collaboration with RAP, has been fighting. Because as we know, certain cities and municipalities take on different things and kind of test them out and kind of let the populations, respond or whatnot. And LA is a really, really intense dichotomy of the wealth distribution. Obviously, because there's Hollywood, there's Bel Air, there's Beverly Hills. And I mean, Hollywood itself, like Hollywood Boulevard is actually pretty ghetto. But the people that make up Hollywood, like celebrities and shit, they don't live in Hollywood. I need you to understand that. Hollywood is very much... Have you guys seen Pretty Woman? That's how it is still. It's not... Hollywood isn't bougie. I mean, it's like touristy and very drawn out. Anyway, so Venice Beach. So the thing about LA is that Venice, Hollywood, LA itself are all different cities within the county of Los Angeles. And this took me a really long time to understand. But each district, okay, so each city and each district, there's certain lines of division drawn. So each city council member is in charge of a different district, right? So there's someone in charge of Venice, there's someone in charge of Culver City, there's someone in charge of, actually Venice and Culver City might be the same, but probably not. There's someone in charge of Santa Monica. So, I mean, Santa Monica and Venice are like, they merge, but Santa Monica is like super bougie. Venice is more of like a touristy, and also a lot of homelessness. But the city and the county are doing everything they can. So all of these people from the city and county come together at city council, right? Shitty hall is what we call it. And that's when you go to city council, and like they do every week. Every Tuesday they have different agenda items, municipal codes, things that they're gonna do, fake ass, award ceremonies and stupid shit like that. Anyway, all of that to say is the laws that they're passing, they do it in different jurisdictions, in different municipalities, and then they get to a point where it becomes the standard, the status quo for the entire county, right? And then there's the county board of supervisors. So there's different levels to the bureaucracy, and LA is a really good way to do this, but this exists in all urban settings, okay? Smaller cities don't have these types of things. I mean, perhaps, but it's really easy to see in these larger jurisdictions, okay? I don't know shit about New York. I don't know shit about Chicago, but I love Chicago. But this is pretty much the model of how things get passed, how laws are written and voted on and become something to criminalize. So 4118D has been something that rap and so in San Francisco there's a place called the Tenderloin, which is pretty comparable to Skid Row. I've never been to the Tenderloin, but I've heard about it, and people said it was more dangerous, including my baby daddy, so I just never went. I mean, I went to one rap convention, but I did not go to the Tenderloin. I'm already in Skid Row. I don't really need to. Anyway, so when we think about homelessness, right, we need to think about a lot of different things. So we're talking about right now the laws in place against homeless folks, okay? Yesterday in one of the readings, I mentioned how homeless people can't get jobs. And this was the first time I heard of this was from a homeless person on the Venice boardwalk. And he was selling something, and we were there with my master's cohort. This was before I moved into LA. It was before baby daddy. It was before my internship. I was just, chilling. And we met this guy, and he had a pizza box, and I don't remember what was in the pizza box, but it wasn't food. And so we were talking to him because he was just doing his thing, hustling or whatever on the boardwalk. And me and my comrades or my, cohort were talking to him. And he said something that I will never forget. He didn't have a phone, and he was like, we were there being immersed in this reality from, white suburbia, wherever we were from. And he said, I can't get a job because I don't have an address. And for me, it was just this moment of, holy fuck, you're absolutely right. Like, I'd worked a million jobs at that point, and I was like, yeah, you definitely need an address to get a job. So you can't use like a P.O. box, you can't use anything. So that's another thing LA Can does. They allow some folks to use members, because it's a nonprofit, but they have people from the streets become members, and then those members get to decide amongst some of the community stuff and participate in community actions against the city and the county and stuff like that. So anyway, he was like, yeah, I don't have an address. And so, some organizations allow some homeless folks to do that, but there's really not a lot available. But, like my baby daddy uses his office address as his address. I think he's homeless right now. He likes being on the streets whenever. I mean, he was on the street even when we were in a house together. Anyway, all that to say is, if you don't have an address, a phone number, a place to clean your clothes, I mean, we've all seen the discrimination. We all understand the discrimination, and we all understand the NIMBYism too, right? Not in my backyard. Like, I want these people to get help, but I don't want to be a part of this solution because ew, right? Judging. Another thing that they've done on the Venice boardwalk is they started closing the beach. They start locking the bathrooms at night. I think up at like 8 o'clock, they lock the bathrooms. Nobody can use the bathrooms. And, they say it's because of drugs and whatnot, which, sure, that's a thing. If you were homeless, you would probably want to be fucked up, too, because the reality of the situation is, fuck this. If you haven't seen White Soft Underbelly, I'm going to put his channel below, and his name is Mark. He does interviews of a bunch of motherfuckers in LA, Skid Row predominantly. So if you want to hear the reality of Skid Row from people experiencing it, I highly recommend watching that. It is very hard, but as we're offering empathy, it's important to understand the struggle, okay? So anyway, I think a lot of people assume that they don't understand the actual systemic issue of homelessness. They just assume you did something bad and now you're homeless, which is there couldn't be anything farther from the truth. As we've already mentioned in this 15 minutes, there are multiple moving parts to the criminalization of homelessness, right? And then once people get criminalized, so once you get a ticket for 4118D, and that's D, so there's 4118 A, B, C before that, and I'm pretty sure there's an E now too. So there's varying degrees of this homelessness. And another thing that in Skid Row in particular, so Skid Row is a wholesale district, it's warehouses, so all this shit, as we're learning about what's happening in China with the tariffs and everything, and all these Chinese folks are coming on and being like, hey, this shit is the same as this, they just switch out the brands. I've been telling you guys that for years, because in Skid Row you can buy Louis Vuitton for like $20, okay? With like, it's fake shit, but it's not fake because it's all made the same. You just don't have to go through the whatever, and then your money doesn't go towards fucking Bel Air and the criminalization of homelessness. It goes to, you know, the actual people manufacturing shit, which, you know, there's sweatshops and shit in China too, okay? We understand that. But as far as manufacturing goes, there's warehouses in Skid Row, and there's tons of product that gets moved. One thing in particular, fish. It's disgusting. The smell is disgusting. The warehouse right next door to LA Can is a fish warehouse, or at least it was when I was there. So it stinks. You know, it's hot as fuck in LA. It's humid. You're on the ocean. Well, not in downtown. You're not on the ocean. But, so there's clothing, shoes, you know, there's so many goods in all of these warehouses. And then there's like these little malls and shit. They're not really malls, but they're like wholesale markets. You can go down there and buy shit super cheap. So, anyway, the point I'm saying is that a lot of new people or owners of these warehouses have moved into Skid Row or are working with the city because the city has this image. So Los Angeles in particular is going to be hosting the Olympics in 2028, which is a whole nother issue. But because of that, what we know about when cities host Olympics is their homeless population has to disappear so that it gives an aesthetically pleasing view. Okay, so that's another reason these laws are put into place. So the cars, when we were homeless, I was homeless in LA for a couple months. And at first I had fun because I was, you know, I had moved a bunch of times. But at that point I was like, you know what, we had a van. And it was kind of fun. But then it got not fun because of the parking. The parking violations are insane in LA. Okay, they are, I mean, again, like most urban settings. But the criminalization of car camping has become a thing. So there are some streets in LA. I'm thinking of, what is that? It's not on Vermont. It's, there's this one street in LA, in South LA, maybe 30, I don't know. I feel like it's in like the 40s or 60 blocks, right? So what we remember, Compton is like in the 120 block, and then there's like Long Beach, which is its own thing. But Compton is like, you know what Compton is, straight out of Compton bullshit, right? It's like deep in the hood. But like in South Central, north of Compton, I don't remember, 60s or 70s maybe the blocks, there's like entire streets of campers and like people who are camping. And I don't know if that exists anymore, but those are folks who were probably in Skid Row and got kicked out because the arts district got gentrified. So the arts district and the downtown areas are getting gentrified like crazy. As you know, yuppies are moving in and taking over. So when we were homeless, we parked in the arts district a lot of the times. We never parked in Skid Row because baby daddy knew to keep me out of Skid Row at night. Thank God. He wasn't all that bad. But, you know, we would take, like, weekends. We would go to Pasadena, or, like, we'd go to all these other places. But it was exhausting because the LAPD are funded to check on cars and, you know, write tickets and shit. Like, we got so many tickets being homeless in our car. And that's the thing. Being so poor is so incredibly expensive, and a lot of people don't know that either. Being below poverty line is so incredibly expensive because you're met with so much extra bullshit from these systems, right? And these systems don't And that's not even like talking about homeless folks. That's just people who are living below the poverty line. But we also need to talk about like the private investing companies and the contractors and the way that they're buying up everything. We experienced that. So when we moved into our duplex, it had been, we got in because it was a brother, an older man, an OG. And he had owned that land for a long time, and he had a good rapport with Dogon's cousin. I've mentioned him before, who lived across the street for like forever. And so he got us this duplex in South Central. And that's where Niall was born. That's where we lived right after we got married, and we're homeless. So we were homeless when we got married. No, I think we were already housed when we got married, but we were homeless right before that for a couple months, and so Mr. Crane owned the space, but he had a son who was special needs, and he was a widower, and he just couldn't take care of it, so he sold it to this guy from the Middle East named David. So then, we had Mr. Crane for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and he was a great guy. He did the best he could, right? And we didn't really have any problems with him because, again, he was a local owner, and he had, like, bought that, right? But he had to sell it. And so when David bought it, David was a douche. And David and Dogon, my baby daddy, did not get along, which caused me so much stress because I was constantly middlemaning between these two grown-ass men. And, Dogon, on principle, never wants to do anything because he's incredibly ridiculous and very immature. So, like, paying bills or, like, doing shit, he's always trying to teach someone a fucking lesson about that shit. And I got roped into it, which is part of financial abuse of narcissists. But anyway, this is a totally different story. I need you to understand, so that was contracted out. So David had all these other guys, right, who would, oh, he had a guy for the water heater. Oh, he had a guy for the plumber. Oh, he had a guy for this. And very rarely did accountability happen and problems get fixed, okay? While we were in that, like, we didn't have a heater. They never fixed the heater while we were there. And that wasn't on us. So anyway, shit like that, right? Which is why my experience right now is so different, because as a single mother, I have a landlord who not only I can call for anything house related, but I can call for like anything else. I've kind of adopted him as a father, and he's a great guy. I actually just found a pin on Temu for him, because every time I call him, I'm like, hey, how's it to go? And he's like, oh, living the dream. And I found this pin on Temu that says, living the dream, one nightmare at a time. And I think he'll really appreciate that. But anyway, all that to say is, the farther away people and companies get from the actual people, right? So like my landlord, I have a direct contact to. That's not the case for many people. I'm in a small town right now. Most people have to go through a management company, through another thing, through another thing, through another thing. And you often get lost within that, right? Again, that's this whole system of just housing and corporate housing at that. So we need to understand that these landlords and these corporate management companies are, like, the hierarchies within that are also so much of the problem of homelessness, right? You have to have what, like 3 times your rent to even get in. You have to do an application fee. You have to have a pet fee. You have to have a drug test. You have to have proof of job, proof of this. You have to pay a pet rent. I mean, all this bullshit, right? So the farther away the person applying for housing is to the higher up, which is mostly the model here in the United States now. I think we're well aware of this. Most of us millennials don't even think home ownership is a way we can go unless we are buying raw land and being like, okay, well, let me build this up for the next 50 years and hope no one drops a bomb on it at this point, right? Or like eminent domain happens. And I think that's the thing, especially with these natural things. Like, I'm thinking of the folks in North Carolina who were just impacted by that hurricane, right? A lot of those were low income folks to begin with, people who had put everything they had in their homesteads or in their farm or in their, own little businesses, like having road stands and like just community, helping out community, and everything taken. And the government being like, here's a check for $700, right? Or like Lahaina or the Palisades or these fires and everything. So we need to offer empathy to homeless folks. A lot of it also has to do with medical. People get something, something medically happens. They need to go in for a medical procedure. They've missed too much of work and now they're fired. And they're trying to recover from medical. And the hospitals themselves, especially in Los Angeles, I've experienced this, do patient dumping. Where they'll just drop people off on the fucking street in their fucking hospital gowns with their hospital bracelets on, barefoot and shit. So many motherfucking people ended up in Skid Row from patient dumping. From mental health institutions, from hospitals, whatnot, because of insurance. It's crazy. So please understand that not everyone you see that's homeless is an addict. And if they are an addict, it probably started after homelessness because it's very rough. It's very expensive. It's very hard. It's very degrading. People look at you like you're fucking nothing. People treat you like fucking bullshit. And that's the thing. So that's why we're talking about offering empathy to homeless folks, okay? I love giving people money. I like to keep $5 bills in my purse just in case I run into people who need money. And I also enjoy giving people food if they want it, but sometimes that's not received well because people do just want money so they can make their own decisions. And again, that whole conversation of, well, what if they buy alcohol? Who gives a fuck? Let them. Let them. Let them use that money how they wish. You do not get a say over that. They're already so fucking unable to make so many decisions for themselves. Like, when's your next shower? Where can I go to the bathroom? I am someone who pees all the fucking time. And being in downtown LA is so infuriating because you cannot use the bathroom anywhere. Nowhere. It's a horrible experience. And if you do, you have to pay. Like, Dogon is from there, so he had scoped out some places to use the bathroom. But the bathroom... The condition of the bathrooms that are available, fucking disgusting. I'd rather just squat in the fucking sewer, honestly. I hope this helps you understand. And it's not just urban settings, but that's just where my experience was. Like, I'm in this small town now, and again, the conversation is about land. We live on indigenous land, no matter where you are in this country, and the folks who are indigenous to this land are the ones that are experiencing homelessness, okay? That's super fucked up. Alright? So if you have the capacity to support anyone who is homeless, to look into organizations within your community to see what they're doing to help people, a lot of them are related to the church because the church gets good funding, as well as like contribution from the congregations and stuff. But other things that you can do to support people in your community who are either experiencing homelessness or facing it, please do. Don't look past those folks and don't point down on them. It could be you. Everyone in this country is getting closer and closer to homelessness. And at a federal level, they are starting to criminalize it as like a felony. Okay? But I hope I'm doing justice in explaining that it's not on the individual. This is a very large systemic issue, and this is a symptom of capitalism, of imperialism, of land theft, of all of this. Colonialism. Gentrification is new age colonialism. So understand your role in the gentrification of your area as well, and do whatever you can do to not do that. Okay? Gentrification, if you need the... Let's look at the definition. Gentrification is a complex process where wealthier people move into and revitalize traditionally lower income or marginalized neighborhoods, often leading to increased property values, rising rents, and displacement of original residents. This transformation can change the cultural and economic character of a neighborhood, impacting long-term residents and potentially creating social divisions. That was really big in where we lived because, so we were south of Martin Luther King, which is a pretty distinct divider between yuppies and not. And USC, the college USC, was literally right on the other side of Martin Luther King. So Martin Luther King ran east to west, It still does. And then Vermont, we were on like MLK, like we were a couple blocks south of MLK, but we were still right on that cutoff. And as a white woman living in the hood, I got a lot of bullshit because they thought I was a gentrifier, which I understand, because I looked like I should be at USC. And so that's another thing. When people treat you badly, it has more to do with larger systemic shit than your personal shit. And you don't really have anything to prove to anyone. Just know what's true for you. And again, as you come into consciousness and as you know your rights and wrongs, and I'm not talking about like police rights, I'm talking about the things you do that are right and the things you do that are wrong. Acknowledge your part in these systems. Acknowledge the things that you've done to create homelessness for other people. I mean, keep it so fucking for real. And we talk about this often when we talk about the hierarchy and the way that we have divisions amongst us of like, you know, I hope this helps. Not all of us are able to be 100% in the right, again, because of the systems that exist. What we can do is we can educate ourselves and we can move the best we can and also acknowledge when we are causing part of the problem and do something to counter that. Whatever that is for you. Whether it's going to city council and voting against this shit or making public comment, whether it's, you know, doing mutual aid setups, whether it's offering things for free to your community, not continuing to be part of the problem. Have a good one. Hi, baby.